So let me do the reminders. 1, you've got your midterm done, hopefully. Is there anybody here who still has not yet done a midterm and needs to do makeup? Yep, good. But I still have to continue to do makeups. And what that means for you folks at this point is while you're seeing the results of your midterm going around right now, I can't let you go over it until everyone else is done with the makeup. So that's probably not going to happen until about the second week of November, because I have to, because the midterm is so important. I've got to give them an extra amount of time to do a makeup. So as a consequence, you won't be able to go over it for another couple of weeks. 2, there is now a new exercise. I briefly described that last time. It's on poverty. You can either do it as a traditional research paper looking at welfare, trying to come up with a reform, documenting where it comes from with evidence. Or you can do it as a field research project. When you go out into the field, interview a homeless person, there's a whole series of things on that prompt that you can choose to do. Either one of those is worth the same. You can't do both. You have to choose between one or the other, whatever is most interesting to you. If you do the field experience, however, 2 things. 1, I especially urge people to do the experience itself in groups so that no one gets hurt. When you go down to the ballpark, obviously don't go there at night. You're interviewing a homeless person, you don't get hurt. So do it in groups, but write about it separately. So writing about it separately. And then make sure you combine it with data. That is, you've interviewed that homeless person right around the ballpark. He was 65 years old, an African American, a veteran of the US Navy. How does that compare to what we know about the data on homelessness more generally in the country, in California, or even in San Diego? So that's the point of comparison with the data. To just do the experience, you get 3-4 points for that. But after that, you've got to be able to compare it to sociology. Okay, so I'll go much more into depth talking about that once we get closer both to the due date, but also having had a lecture or so on poverty and economic inequality. Okay, those are coming up. Quiz number 4 is coming up 1 week from today. That's chapters 4, 5, and 13. 4, 5, and 13. I will go over those on Tuesday like I usually do in preparation for quiz number 4. Okay, so that's going on. For those of you who haven't seen it yet, the printout's there. It's going around. That is a printout of your midterm grade, the midterm grade. There it is. You pass around the sign-up sheet. The last column is your midterm grade. I'm not going to go over your grades with you today because I've decided to wait until I've got your papers all graded. I should have that done by Tuesday. That way I really know where you stand, because those papers can make a big difference depending how many points you get. So today, normal lecture. We'll get done with material on socialization, hopefully get through the stuff on interactional sociology. And then we're now on to a new set of lectures. Let me just quickly show you those. It's over on Blackboard. Lecture notes 2. So since the midterm, we're now on to lecture notes 2. You should download those, bring them with you to class, take notes in the margin, take additional notes, whatever. But this is going to be the core of what we're talking about from here on out for the rest of this semester until the final.
Can you blank out the...
Oh, could someone turn off the lights up there, please? All right. Is that better? That's too dark? Yeah, okay. All right, so at any rate, note 2 from here on out. Once I finish the materials on socialization, I've still got a couple more things to do. Then we'll be talking about this material here on lecture notes 2, interactional sociology. That will be on the quiz 4 coming up a week from today. Pretty clear on that. New lecture notes, the quiz, chapters responsible, the new paper, the new exercise, what's going on with the midterm, what's going on with that last paper. previous paper. Remember, the previous paper, you also still have a chance to do it late. I'm taking 1 point off per week for turning it in late. And you can expect to hear me yell at you next time on Tuesday when I go over your grades if you didn't do the paper. Because you go, I'm trying to get that B. Okay, you should have done the paper. Still time. Still time to do that paper. Yeah.
You know how we had to average 3 points per paper? Say we get our paper back and we didn't hit the material that we were supposed to. Is there any way we can redo it and return it in to try and get that 3 points?
No, at that point you're done with that one.
Okay.
The only thing you can do is if you turn the paper in at all, you'll get at least a point for it.
Okay.
So that means you'll just have the double efforts on the second paper.
Okay.
Okay. Michael, was there a question?
If you turn in the paper late and you get whatever points deducted from it, does that still qualify you for the total averaging
Sure.
3 points?
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, you can. I will always give you at least a point for the paper. You know, you turn it in 4 weeks late, and it's going to have to be 4 or 5 pages, but you're still going to get a point for it, even though I'm taking 4 points off of it. All right. The offer for turning this first paper, the first paper in late, exists as long as I'm still doing the makeups for the midterm. So that'll also be the second week in November. So you can still do it as late as it. After that, no more late papers. That we're getting too close to the end of the semester and the kind of last few weeks of the semester push. Okay, so those are all reminders, all feedback. Yeah. What's going around again is the printout of all your grade. The last column is your midterm grade. I'll tell you, I'm probably going to curve. I always try and curve the midterm, just because it's weighted so heavily in your grade. I assume I should get at least 1 perfect score. Somebody should get a perfect score. If I don't, I create it by adding curve points. Right now, I think the highest I've seen is a 97. It might be a 98, because I've got a bunch of different classes. As far as I can tell, I think it's at its minimum it's 98. 98. And you can pretty much assume at this point that you'll be able to add 2 extra credit points to that score on that midterm you just saw. I still have people doing the makeup, as I said, but I'm taking points off for that, so it's impossible for them to blow the curve for that. Okay, so any questions? Yeah.
79 would then be a low B.
Yep, that's exactly what it would be. Yeah, that'd be an 81. Anybody else? Sure. Cool. All right, let me just go over the material we talked about last time. This is the last bit of that previous set of lecture notes. So we talked about Piaget, his 4 stages. Remember, Piaget argued biology was much more important in the development of our ability to reason and use language. Much more important than certainly the preceding behaviors had believed. 4 stages. Sensory motor, 0 to 2 years old. Child, a moving, sensing being. Hard to talk about any human-like thought. I was just here a week ago. I was out with a friend, and her daughter had a baby who was 3 months old, and she had a little video of that child just that day who had just turned over. That's a big deal. That's a big deal when a baby turns over. That's the kind of stuff you're looking at with the sensory motor stage. Children at this stage, even at about the age of 1, 1.5, they lack object permanence, and you should know what that statement means. If they don't see something at that age, it doesn't exist for them. Now, during that period of that development, they do develop object permanence, which is why you can almost spend the rest of your life playing peekaboo with a little kid at this stage, because they never get bored with it, because that's about as sophisticated as their brain can process. Stage 2, pre-operations. 2 to 7 years old. Remember, it's a ballpark figure. There's no exact age for this stuff. Language development. All of a sudden, the skyrocketing of the ability to learn language in this period of time. But then it dies down. It doesn't disappear, but dies down dramatically after this stage, once the physical neural connections in the brain have been made. Children at this age, highly egocentric, They lack conservation. That famous series of experiments Piaget did, pouring water from one glass into another. If it looks like it's a change in amount, they believe it's gotten bigger. Stage 3, concrete operations. This is where the child gets the concrete physical world but lacks abstract reasoning. Easiest to see in their sense of morality. Stage 4 is the final stage, formal operations. 12 on up, about the age of adolescence. The ability distinguished here is abstract deductive reasoning. Then we talked a little bit about what sociology is interested in development, which is socialization to become like members of your group. Role learning, very important. Roles, a set of interrelated behaviors attached to a social position. Do most teachers act alike? Yes. Do most students act alike? Yes. Police officers, surgeons, psychiatrists, ministers, because they all play the same role. First to discuss role development was Cooley, Charles Cooley, the looking glass self. The roles that stick to us are those that other people find attractive in us. That is, we are who other people think we are. Then me. The ability to learn any kind of role at all was a big deal for me. Remember, Cooley's just looking at the important ones that become part of the self. Mead is looking at how we learn any kind of role. Taking the role of the other. We imagine ourselves playing their role. In little children's case, literally and figuratively, they put themselves in other people's shoes. Little kids dressing up like mommy, wearing mommy's shoes. 2 kinds of others that people imitate. A concrete other, which is a specific person, real or imaginary. A generalized other, which is other. I'm not milking that one. Other, which is a category, an abstract category. Then the stages of role learning. Imitation. Child learns and imitates gestures, but not yet a role. Play, where a child learns the role, but not the roles of others around them. And then the final stage, games, where the child learns both their own role and those of other people. Did we get through institutions of socialization in this class?
No.
No? Okay. So let me start off there. All right, any questions of what I've just reviewed? This is just review from lecture last time. I'm clearly telling you what are the most important points. And again, those are the ones showing up on your quiz and ultimately on your final exam. All right, so if you don't understand those, some of it, I mean, almost all that I just talked about is in the book. But I talk about it a little differently. Any questions on that stuff? Okay, cool. Well, let's go back to the PowerPoint then. So I hadn't talked at all about these agents of socialization. Okay, well, where do the roles come from? It's obvious. What's the most important institution of socialization?
Family.
The family. Some of these institutions of socialization, some of these agencies of socialization, some of these organizations of socialization have been around since the get-go. As long as there have been people, there have been these. And the family